By that time, we felt kind of like quite confident in our capabilities and decided to launch our jazz influenced dance party, which we called Giant Step. The name came from obviously John Coltrane, and also that at the time we wanted to take a giant step in music and club experiences that was not happening, we felt, in New York at the time.
Who are we speaking with today?
Hi, I'm Maurice, or Maurice, whichever way you want to call me, Bernstein. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Giant Step.
Tell us what Giant Step is.
What is Giant Step? Well, we started as an underground party in New York, and ran that for almost 20 years. And within that time, in discovering new talent, we started managing some of those artists. Then we had a record label, the first one being an imprint through GRP, and we released stuff like New Eureka Soul and the Groove Collective's second album. And then we started releasing music independently. A lot of that was with Trent. We did Carl Hancock Rocks. We did the Donny album, Welcome to the Color Section, a bunch of compilations, bunch of tracks. And then helped record labels market their artists. So I did everybody from Amy Winehouse to Lady Gaga, and I mean, the list is pretty endless. And then really over the last sort of like 15 or so years, started working directly with brands to really help them with all their different verticals within the music space. And we can get into that a little bit later. But we're alive and kicking. We're 30, going into our 33rd year.
Fantastic. Tell us about the beginning, your journey from the USA to here and starting Giant Step.
From the UK.
I'm sorry, from the UK to here. Yes, to US, yeah. UK to USA.
So I grew up in Manchester, England. For those of you who don't know, that's in the north of England. I was always very passionate about music. I was exposed to music really initially through radio in England. The radio was very eclectic, so you got to hear a lot of different types of music, a lot of different sounds. By the time I was in my early teens, I started getting exposed to, I was able to buy records, and I started getting into bands like Santana, who kind of opened my musical ears up to jazz and funk and Latin music. And really from there, I went on my musical journey. I went to college in London, which really gave me the opportunity to be exposed to even more music, because that's the place that everybody came to, that not everyone would get up to Manchester for shows. And after 3 years of living in London, I ended up in New York, initially just to work for a few months to make some money to go traveling to Brazil. But while I was in New York, I really sort of like just dove very, very deep into club culture. I got to go to the Garage the weekend before it closed. I'd go to the Loft. I'd go to hear Frankie Knuckles play every week, David Morales, and basically fell in love with New York. And so when I came back from Brazil in sort of like May of 1988, I decided I wanted to stay. And really, I've been here ever since. And that's when I started my journey as far as trying to make a profession in the music business.
Tell us about Groove Academy.
Well, so the Groove Academy came about, I tried to get jobs at record companies because that was the thing that you did back then. I didn't know anything about the music business, didn't know anybody. So I figured I'd just be an A&R man. I thought I had good ears, but I couldn't get any jobs because I didn't know anybody. And I mean, I have a bunch of stories of how I tried to get jobs, but One of them was a friend of mine from England gave me a test pressing of one of his friends' groups to actually give to Timmy Regisford, who was working at MCA at the time. So I walked over to MCA with this test pressing under my arm, and I put my resume in it as well, hoping that I could waltz into his office, impress him, and he'd give me a job, not only with the artist I was trying to flog, but also with myself. Neither of us got past the receptionist, and the white label was Soul to Soul Fair Play. So I wish I would have kept it. It would be worth a lot of money now.
Wow.
So I spent my time basically working in restaurants because that was the best way of making money. And I had an internship at a concert venue called Town Hall. I was working for $5 an hour, just basically trying to just learn as much as possible about the music business. And about 89, I started doing my own parties. It was called Ada's House of Love. And I had a DJ called Ernie Kendall as the DJ. He was a reel-to-reel DJ. Just for those who know about Ernie, legendary, but not very well, incredible DJ. So I started doing those parties, and then I started doing stuff at Nell's and MK, and I was always very, very interested in music, live music. So I started putting on some live bands. And then one day a friend of mine told me about someone she'd met who was trying to get his career started again. And I probably wouldn't know who he was, but would I be interested in meeting with him? So of course I asked his name. His name was Leon Thomas. Leon Thomas, the vocalist, who I was very well aware of. He played with Pharoah Sanders. He played with Joe Williamson. He played with Santana and a bunch of other people. So I met with Leon, and Leon told me that himself and Pee Wee Ellis from the JBs were putting a band together, and it was called Leon Thomas and the JBs, and the JBs consisted of Pee Wee Ellis, Maceo Parker, and Fred Wesley. So I jumped at the chance. I put them on at MK. I put them on at Nell's. And then after that, they were like, guys, or Maurice, we need to get paid properly for this. So when I was working at Town Hall as the intern, one day, my boss, who I was in the office, I shared the office with her. She had a meeting with a gentleman who was head of PR for SOBs. And he had an idea about selling Town Hall a world diva series, sort of women divas from around the world doing a series of concerts at Town Hall. And me being in the office, I could hear the whole conversation, and he was reeling off different names of different divas he wanted. And me being the self-opinionated young kid that I was, I started chiming in and telling him and my boss how many people I thought would go to each of those shows. Some of them I thought would be good, some of them I didn't, and I was quite vocal about it. At the end of the meeting, he came up to me and he's basically said, "Who the fuck are you?" And I explained who I was. And I started going on and on about wanting to do sort of jazz dance stuff in New York, like I used to go to in London. His immediate response was, "Oh, like Dingwalls." And he was the first person who actually knew what I was talking about. And that was Jonathan Rudnick, who became my partner and the co-founder of the Groove Academy and Giant Step. So when Leon and Pee Wee wanted more money, I didn't have any money. So I thought, well, I should take this to a venue who could maybe put the money up. So I thought about Jonathan and SOBs. So I went to SOBs and I met with the owner, Larry Gold, and Jonathan, and told them about the JBs and Leon Thomas. And Larry was very supportive and said, yes, I'll back this show. But I wanted to make sure that it kept I had some control over it. So I gave the series a name and I called it the Groove Academy. Basically it was a place where people would learn about the artists who'd been heavily sampled. So we did the first show in June of 1990 with Leon Thomas and the JBs. The second show we did was Bobby Bird and the James Brown All-Stars. So it was Bobby Bird, Vicky Anderson, Maceo Pee Wee Fred, Marva High, Marva Whitney. So we did that show. And then we did Blaze's, one of Blaze's first live shows. And then at the end of the summer, we did Bootsy Collins Rubber Band. By that time, we felt kind of like quite confident in our capabilities and decided to launch our jazz influenced dance party, which we called Giant Step. The name came from obviously John Coltrane, and also that at the time we wanted to take a giant step in music and club experiences that was not happening, we felt, in New York at the time.
Wow. Fucking fantastic. Tell us about some of the DJs and performers you had at Giant Step over the years.
So when we were starting Giant Step, it wasn't an easy thing for a DJ to get their head around. Wanted a DJ who could mix, because he was going to have to pull a lot of music from records and put them in there. And I used to go to Save the Robots a lot, and there was a DJ there who I just thought was incredible. And knew how to mix and cut records in a style that I'd never heard before. So that was DJ Smash. And I approached Smash and told him about it. And he was like, oh, I'm a jazz fan. Oh, yeah, I get it. You know, he totally got it. So he came on board. And we did the first Giant Step, I think it was September the 24th, 1990 at SOB's. It was a Monday night. And I think there were more people working for us that night than people who came. But the people who came dug it and really liked it. And we continued at SOB's until the end of 1990 on a Monday, tough night to do. And gradually more kindred spirits started arriving, and a couple of musicians, Richard Worth on flute, Gordon Clay, Nappy G, started coming and playing, and it kind of started growing from there. Also within that time, Smash had to do a tour of Japan, so we needed another DJ. And I'd already been working a lot, even before Giant Step started, with Jazzy Nice. So again, the perfect guy, knows how to mix, knows jazz. So Jazzy came in and took over from Smash while Smash was away. And it was so successful that we decided to give them sort of like dual responsibility. So they'd be playing every other week.
Wow, fantastic. And then at some point you had Ron Trent as a resident as well.
Yeah, I mean that. So we're fast forwarding like 8 years.
Gotcha. There's a lot in between there. Yeah.
Oh, a lot in between there. So, you know, we honestly, you know, I can't say Giant Step was very successful in the beginning, but that also says something about being just sticking with something. You know, I think a lot of people, I was very naive. I thought if you play good music, people will come. And it's not that at all. It's like people want to go to places where there are other people and they can meet girls or boys and have a good time. And, oh, and the music's great too. We had great music, but we had nothing else really. And we struggled. We knew that Monday nights was not the ideal night, but in order to get a better night, we needed to prove ourselves. And again, before I'd started Giant Step, I'd done a party in a basement of a restaurant on Union Square called Metropolis. And I thought, well, hey, let's try and see if we can get Metropolis on a Thursday. and they weren't doing anything, so they welcomed us. And within, I'd say, a month of doing it at Metropolis on a Thursday night, it just exploded. And all of a sudden we had a scene, you know, the lines around the block, people trying to get in. Music was amazing. We had the incredible musicians playing with the DJs and knowing how to play with the DJs. We had special guests come down like Branford Marsalis, Ravi Coltrane. It was like the who's who. And out of that grew the Groove Collective, who we managed, and we started doing separate shows with. Dana Bryant, the poetess, who we also managed, and Repercussions, who had already been around before Giant Step started, but members of the Groove Collective also played in Repercussions, so started managing them too. Got them all record deals, worked with Gary Katz, who was the producer of Steely Dan, and started making records. The club continued. We continued doing concerts. You know, we were bringing over people like the Massive Attack, Jamiroquai, the Brand New Heavies. We were doing everybody. And then in 1996, I was approached by Tommy LaPuma, the famous producer, who had taken over GRP Impulse and was looking for a more sort of like street jazzy vibe label to have. And he approached us and we jumped at it. I brought the Groove Collective over, who I'd been managing. They were on Warner Brothers, brought them over, and managed to get New Eureka Soul as well, which was still in its very much infancy back then. And then after our deal with GRP finished, I went independent. I also felt that Giant Step needed a change of sound. At that point, we'd been doing this sound for about 8 years, and it started to feel a little, not tired, but needed some sort of refreshing. There were a lot of people now doing it, a lot of people trying it. The word acid jazz, which I never liked, just began to like just haunt us a little bit. And I wanted to totally change it up. Also with the fact that we were doing an independent record label, felt that the weekly club was an opportunity to make our own music and test it out at the club. And I wanted a producer, DJ, who could do that. I knew who Ron was. I met with Ron, and he was the perfect person to become the resident DJ and also make records with us too, either remixing records that we were putting out or producing original records as well. And that's how the Giant Step, called it Giant Step Record Sessions with Ron Trent started. And that lasted, I'd say, maybe 2 years, 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a journey. What was the most challenging part of that era? Like at what point did it turn from like, this is a struggle to, I can pay my rent and it's like I'm breaking even, or I'm comfortable doing it now? Was it the Metropolis era, or was it what was the turning point?
What was the turning point? Well, I mean, the important thing to me was I never wanted to be in the nightlife business. It was kind of a means to an end. And always had a day business in Giant Step, whether we were managing or doing marketing or being a record label. The nightlife portion was always just the extra, the sheen on it. I think when you're trying to push boundaries, you're always going to struggle, because you're sort of like trying to make new you're trying to break boundaries. So It's always been a struggle, but we've been around for 30 plus years. So, you know, we might not have like hit the jackpot immediately, but we've always been there. But it's never easy. If I wanted an easy job, I would have become something else.
Let's talk about DJs. When you're doing an event, what are your considerations when you're thinking about booking a DJ? Is it their talent? Is it their audience? Is it their style? Is it, or what would you cause you to not book a DJ?
That style.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, I mean, style and talent, I believe, come to the same thing. And it's not really just about, it's not, the audience isn't as important. Because I've booked many DJs who nobody knew at the time. So it's style and talent. And attitude as well. I mean, you know.
Right. Can you work with the person? Right.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the changes in New York nightlife, the rise of bottle service, the move to Brooklyn for a lot of clubs. How did that affect your world, if at all?
Didn't really affect my world, because again, we've always had been on our own trajectory. I mean, there were some clubs we couldn't get into because, you know, they didn't believe our crowd were going to spend enough money. You know, people who dance don't spend as much money as people who don't dance. But it didn't really affect us. You know, I would have done stuff in a barn and put a sound system in there. Doesn't really matter to me.
I love it. I love it. Let's talk about doing events. I'm sure there were many copycats that tried to copy your style and type of party. Two-part question. Knowing what you know now, how would you approach Giant Step differently? And then two, what common mistakes do you see event promoters and marketers do that you see as rookie move?
Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't do it. No, I'm joking. Of course I'd do it. I mean, half the fun of it was being so naive, because if you really knew what you were doing, you wouldn't even do something like this. It's not a, you know. I think, to answer your question, you've got to be professional in the way you run things. It's not just about being into the music. It's also, you know, people are coming and paying money or coming to have an experience and have fun. You've got to make sure that they're able to do that, and just make the experience fun. And sometimes we didn't quite succeed in that. You know, we were sometimes a bit janky, but, you know, we tried, and you know, I think especially towards the end, you know, we definitely had that down. Yeah, there were lots of copycat parties. A lot of people were looking at us and going, "Oh, I could do that." Well, good luck. And they couldn't. So, you know, I've always followed something that Miles Davis said. You know, you've got to create your own sound like you, not sound like somebody else. And that's what has always been the philosophy.
Talk to us about Giant Step today.
So today, we're an award-winning marketing agency. We've created successful marketing plans for brands like Samsung, Levi's, Intel, Absolute, Jaeger Couture, the Old Navy, Dolby. Who else have we worked with? We're currently working with Under Armour. We do all of the Edition hotels, global openings. and big tentpole events around the world for them. That's Ian Schrager's company, and we've had a long relationship with them. W Hotels, we're the global music agency of record for them, and we created something called W Records for them that we ran for a few years pre-COVID, which was a record label. And I signed artists like Japanese Breakfast and Roosevelt and Amber Mark and Perfume Genius to the label. We're brought on by big companies to really help them figure out music. We're currently doing a global project for Under Armour around changing their sound. We just did the music supervision for the 1619 project, which is on Hulu. We've just put together a master plan for related properties, the big property company, on how to develop culture and music in Florida for them. We're pretty in demand, and I think a lot of that has to do with the skills that not just myself, but the people within my company have in really understanding not just music, but marketing and how to successfully integrate music cross-functionally within a brand.
What's been the secret to your success?
Naivety. No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's coming from a place of loving the music, being passionate about music, understanding how to implement that, not always trying to be too cool for school, just staying current, respecting the past, just trying to be the best at what you do. I mean, that's what you struggle with every day, in everything you should do, you should be trying to do that,
What's next?
What is next for me personally or for Giant Step?
Both. And tell us about the event coming up as well.
Oh, so is it the 5th of March?
Yes.
Okay, so on the 5th of March at SOB's, Moment NYC, which is an organization founded by Genji Soresi, who actually was in the Groove Collective and also in Repercussions and was the drummer at Giant Step. He set up this organization a few years ago, which was to really celebrate great music moments within sort of New York nightlife history. And he wanted to do a retrospective on Giant Step. And I was like, great, let's do it. And we're doing 1990 to 1995. So there's going to be a panel, myself, Erica Lee. Erica was the first employee at Giant Step and worked with us for many years after that. Smash, who was our original DJ, and the interviewer is going to be David Hershkovitz from Paper Magazine, who was around back then too. And then Smash is going to do a DJ set after that. And it's at SOB's, which is where we originally did the Giant Step parties, and we originally did the Groove Academy events as well.
Fantastic. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that I didn't ask?
No, I mean, good to talk to you after all these years. Thank you for all you have done and are doing for New York nightlife. My feeling on New York nightlife at the moment, it's alive and well. People will always complain, but I feel very good about what I'm seeing. I'm seeing from young people. Recently, I started DJing again, so I I play for young people and they love the music. They really love it. A lot of them know the music and they're very curious about it. And I feel really good about the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'll keep you posted when it goes live.
Thank you.
I'll see you on the 5th.
Take care. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.